Today's episode of Dungeon Crawlers Radio is brought to you by Gamers Inn, your one-stop location for all your gaming needs. Located in Lehigh City, Utah, their fun and friendly staff will be more than happy to answer any of your gaming needs. Just remember, Gamers Inn, it's where adventures begin.
Autobots, roll out. Broadcasting live from the DCR studio.
Oh, yeah!
The Geek Revolution starts here.
Nice shooting, Tex.
Get ready for the #1 hit geek radio show out there.
Well, it is impressive, isn't it?
Because it's time for Dungeon Crawlers Radio.
That's great!
Let's get ready to rumble!
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
Welcome to another episode of Dungeon Crawlers,
Thank you. Feels better now.
where
It's slime time.
we're going to talk about Ghostbusters.
They're seriously gonna...
Now, before we start, we have to say 1984 classic Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Because
I had never
The
seen
original.
before, apparently.
Yeah.
Bill Murray,
So
This is.
Dan Aykroyd.
Oh, you're gonna tell.
so we had some listeners give us some feedback, and one of those was, they love our reviews, and they're actually, and they focused in on Mckenzie. They're like, you guys are always talking about this, and Mackenzie's always saying, never seen it, don't know what you're talking about. So they're like, I know it. It'd be really good if you reviewed some classic movies and got her first-time viewership opinion, and you guys watching it too, and then kind of doing a review based on that nostalgia, you guys seeing it again, has it stood up the test of time, and so on and so forth. So we decided to do it, and we started with Ghostbusters, which, of course, Scott is a huge fan.
See, and that's the problem. So I'm going to be looking at this as the review of the uber nostalgia.
Yes.
Not fan, but more fanatic.
Okay, we're going to go, so Mackenzie's going to have the newbie,
Sigourney Weaver.
Scott is going to be the fanatic, and Varen and I are going to fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, pretty much right in the middle.
Yeah.
Rick Moranis.
Yeah. So, where do we start with this? So, 1984.
There was
I
a
would
lot
say
of
Ghostbusters.
smoking.
William Afton.
Well, that was normal. That was acceptable back then. You should go back and watch some of the 50s and 60s movies. There is a ton more smoking back then.
As stupid
But
as
you're right. Current day movies, you don't see that as much. It's kind of dwindled out because of all the health stuff. But you're right. There was a lot of smoking in that. But
Well,
there was
back
also
then,
some
there
very.
was a lot of smoking.
I mean, it's PG, isn't it, or PG-13?
It's
was
PG
actually.
because PG-13 didn't exist yet.
However,
Okay,
you
yeah.
can find VHS tapes that say it's PG-13.
Yeah. So it was PG. There's a lot of language in there.
Yeah.
Which,
There was a lot.
There is, which was kind of funny. Going back and watching
there's
this.
quite a bit of innuendo in there.
There's a lot of
there's-
innuendos.
that I never picked up on.
This was
Well, as a
this was
kid, you
Saturday
don't.
Night Live.
Yeah. I mean, definitely Saturday Night Live. Bill Murray's character was originally designed for John Belushi before he passed away.
I thought John Belushi was still alive and Jim Belushi's the dead one.
No, Jim is still alive.
Oh, okay.
Jim is John's younger brother. But, Dan and John were huge buddies because of Saturday Night Live and Blues Brothers. Another great movie. Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, another one comes on the list because Carrie Fisher's in it too.
Ooh, that's a good one. We have to see that one. Well,
I
you know
love
what?
Wayne's World. Does that count for anything?
Let's start.
Funny enough, IMDb has it listed as PG. So.
Well, no,
Okay.
that was the original.
That was the original rating,
Well,
so
I
that's
just-
what IMDb keeps. Yeah.
Oh, it keeps the
Yes,
original. Okay,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
would update it.
I would like to hear Mackenzie's take on it to start.
Yeah, let's
Yes,
start
yeah,
with
yeah,
the
what do you-
newbie's take on Ghostbusters.
So
I'm
what'd
gonna
you
get
think?
kicked. I fell asleep.
Oh,
It
Okay.
is in the 80s. Did you manage to finish it, or did you see the end?
Yes, I saw the end because I went, oh, I'm supposed to be watching a movie.
So apparently this was such an exciting movie, she fell asleep.
wow! This feels like trying to share a movie with my wife. Like she's never seen it. I'm like, let's watch this. It's awesome. She's like,
I can-
okay,
So-
I'll watch
so
with you.
Mackenzie is
This
giving
movie
this-
starts, and she's on her phone, 15 minutes later, she's snoring.
Okay, so
hold on. So
In my
you're telling
defense,
me
it was only the last
Mckenzie-
10 minutes that I got really, really tired, and I had seen about the last 10 minutes at some point in my life.
So Mckenzie gives it 2 snores, which in Mckenzie,
Wait,
2
snores
snorts
up?
is
2
good.
snores down.
2 snorts are good, 2 snores are bad.
Okay.
Oh, that's the scale.
Maybe a snort and a snore?
Oh, jeez.
1 thumb snore, 1 thumb snort?
Oh.
No, I don't know what it was because I'm like, I've heard it talked about. I've heard you talk about it. I don't know. I think I had it built up in my head as something else.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it has been out for well over 30 years.
Well, and that's the problem with a lot of these movies, because I'm going through and I'm actually rewatching some old movies. Well, watching for the first time. And I find that the only way I've been exposed to these movies is through the window of somebody else's experience.
Okay.
Now, so Mckenzie, when she's heard us talk about it, she's kind of experiencing this through my window of when I was a kid. This was my safety blanket. This is like my security saying, hey, there's something bumping the night, but there's someone who can deal with it.
So she's heard the fanatic talking about it all the time.
Yeah.
She was expecting some amazing movie and then fell asleep.
Well, and the thing is like I said, it was only like the last 10 minutes that I was starting to fall asleep, and
That's when the best stuff starts happening.
but I'd seen that stuff. I remember seeing the ending. Like I remember seeing about the last 10 to 15 minutes.
Well, and to be fair, Ghostbusters was shown on TV a lot.
It was.
It's like Predator for Varen and I. We had never seen it until, like a month, 2 months ago?
Yeah.
And halfway through, we're like, oh, I remember seeing this scene. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yep.
classic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
I remember seeing that almost every other Saturday when I'd come in from the swimming pool and turn on
That
the TV.
it seems like
Yeah.
It was
See,
the
and I kind of
Schwarzenegger
feel that way
afternoon
with
marathon.
yeah.
Ghostbusters a little bit, but I'm watching it and I found the history of the making of the movie a lot more fascinating than the movie itself because I didn't know a lot of Bill Murray's lines were ad-libbed. A lot of the movie was ad-libbed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And
Which honestly
hate
is
this.
what's fantastic about what we saw, because that is how amazing actors they are. And that's, most of Robin Williams' movies
Oh, yeah.
are ad-libbed.
oh yeah.
They kind of give them a direction, say, okay, this is
Yeah.
what the other lines are, go. And
Well, they'd had problems with giving him scripts. He wouldn't stick with them anyway.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
the writers never had an issue because what he usually came up with was,
was
better,
better.
anyway.
Yeah, and that's just how fantastic of actors they were. And what we got was a lot better than probably what was originally written, to be honest.
They said it. I
Well,
was
they still kept to the story structure
You're right.
of what was written in the original.
But I
script,
guess
which-
the Jim Belushi version, or whoever's not the dead one. Sorry, John. I guess that one was supposed to be a lot darker and a lot scarier. Dan Aykroyd's original screenplay was, and then Harold Ramis was brought in to make
You're
it
right.
funnier.
it was also supposed to be like a sci-fi horror.
Yeah.
So it was actually they were time travelers. The car was supposed to time travel and fly, and
Yeah, it was supposed to take place in the future.
yeah, exactly. And so Ivan Reitman said, hey, let's tone it down. Let's make it more of the average, Joe
Plus, it was
Schmo
supposed to
and
be
the
like a
startup.
$300 million movie if they went that route.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so suddenly the Ghostbusters weren't space traveling. No, they were blue collar
Workers. Yeah.
who happened to be exterminators of the paranormal type.
Well, they were college professors that kind of
Exactly,
research
but
into that.
even
But-
as
but
far
even
as
then, they're
college
still blue
professors
collar.
go, they weren't your average college. Yeah,
No,
they were
Because you've
more
never been in the
blue-collar.
private sector.
Yeah.
They expect results. Like that just
That made me laugh.
Yeah.
there are a lot of good lines. There was good acting in it.
Oh,
Is
the
it wrong I
one-liners.
loved What About Bob more?
No,
No?
it's okay.
Oh, so that's
Yep.
a classic too.
I love Bob.
It is a classic movie, but there's a couple things here. First off, there's a huge generation gap.
Yeah.
I mean, there really is, because of when you grew up, you were the sponge, and what you absorbed was vastly different than what that movie was kicking out.
Well-
There's lots of references and stuff like that just wasn't around.
And
Here's another thing.
the
What
effects
references?
were, I mean, I can appreciate how, I'm sure, because I have a really good friend who is an amazing artist, and she knows a lot about art history, and she was telling me how they did, like, the ghosts was like painting like single cell stuff, and I'm like, that's insane. But
Well, the streams were the painting, the single cell.
Yeah.
The ghosts were actually filmed live action and then digitally imposed.
Yeah.
see, and
by digital, I mean cut. They cut the film and actually put
laid
them
it on the film.
On the film.
Yeah.
that's horrifying.
It was, I really feel like a lot of times, even though it was a lot more work, those older tricks that they used for special
like,
effects seem
for example,
so
the
much
subway
more real.
ghost. Like if you freeze frame even at a decent quality, you can see like the outline of the frame, like as the subway ghost flies out of the subway and as it moves along.
Well, and the crazy thing is that I'm watching it, and I was texting her while I was watching the movie because I told her, I'm like, hey, I'm watching Ghostbusters, and she's like, really? I love that movie. And she was, you'd have to read some of the texts. They're pretty funny. And I'm like, the effects are terrible. And she's explained it to me, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then the more I was watching it, the more it reminded me a little bit of the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
Like those classic effects in Disney.
Oh, you're saying not the Haunted Mansion movie?
No, the actual Haunted Mansion ride.
Yes, exactly.
So, and this is the thing is,
scared me for a second.
There's that.
I still love that movie, so
There's
don't judge
still
me.
that generation gap because you're so used to these amazing special effects.
But I love Star Wars.
You're right.
Which had great effects in episode 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, and when you go to episode 1, suddenly we're back to 8-bit pixelated video games.
Well, in some ways, but in other ways, we got better lightsaber battles. We got
better choreographing for sure.
That's true. You're right. We got much better in some things, much worse in others.
There was a compromise.
But
even Casper, I remember watching Casper growing up.
Yeah,
that was Ghost.
You're right, but
Dan Aykroyd is actually in that as Ray Stantz.
Oh yeah, he is. I heard that.
And because
who are you gonna call?
Because of Star
Someone
Wars
else.
is why
That
we
was
have
such a
all
good
these
moment.
better special effects and stuff like that. But going back to the movie, it does have its limitations. Mm-hmm. You can definitely see that because of the time period. They didn't have the ability to do the special effects we can see now, which is just computer throwing the ghost, blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. You know, they had, like you said, they filmed it, they had to cut it out, they had to put it on top of the film, you know, seal it, and go forward.
I didn't feel the chemistry between Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver either.
Well, that's because he is. This is one the other fanatics will shoot me down for, but I hate Bill Murray's character. I hate the character of Peter Venkman.
Do you really?
He is. Look at him. He is a sexist pig.
He
who
is
basically
a sexist
is
pig.
only out for himself. He is, and as a side note, he is the only character in the movie who actually has any kind of character growth at the end. Because for the first time near the end of the film, he actually thinks about someone else other than himself. He actually becomes a little selfless. The entire film, he's thinking about himself, how he can get ahead, how he can get his money, how he can get in Sigourney Weaver's pants. Like it's literally like him the whole way through. And even when you watch him, he's a. He's
a jerk.
Yeah,
he is.
So here's
he's
the thing.
not a nice guy.
But that is what is perfect about the character.
He talks. What's the very
take
first thing
offense
you
to that.
find him doing? The very first despicable thing.
He's hitting on the other girl and buzzing the guy that's doing it right.
Oh, okay.
Which is
yeah,
hilarious.
I forgot
That is
about
hilarious.
that one. I forgot. No, but even more despicable than that is when he gets Dan Aykroyd to sell the family farm.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's got a third mortgage these days.
At 19%, you didn't even bargain with the guy. 19%.
19%.
Even today's rates, like that's.
That's outrageous.
Okay,
that was
but you're right.
astronomical back then.
See, but that's the thing. You needed him to be that over the top, because then it made the other characters. You're like, oh, hey, this, Dan Aykroyd's character is a really nice guy. He's willing to bend over backwards for his friends.
He's a giant kid.
Yeah,
he's the heart.
He's the big
And then
this place is great.
And then we had
That was funny.
We'll take it.
We have Egon. That's just kind of what's wrong with this guy? He's really weird. But then you're like,
He was funny to watch.
But I have a friend like that.
Yeah, and then there's Winston.
Yeah.
If it involves a steady paycheck, I'll believe anything.
Yeah, but we also we've had that friend or known someone that is a lot like Peter. That's kind of that jerk.
He's the pepper in the relationship.
He is.
I don't know what that means.
Well, okay. So when you have a
Yeah.
when you have a dinner, you don't just put salt. You do salt and pepper, and together it tastes good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
But
use
alone,
Plain pepper, or if you just throw in salt.
I don't use pepper at all, so this reference is completely going over my
if
head.
you just had Egon, Ray, and even if they threw Winston in there at the end,
it wouldn't have worked.
Exactly, because you would have had too much like super happy, super nerdy, super scientific, and then all right, let's go with it. Like it's that balance.
Yeah, let's use a modern
needed.
day example: the Avengers.
Okay.
You need Tony Stark.
Captain America, Tony Stark. They are completely polar
Oil and
opposites.
water.
To the point where they go to war against
You're right.
each other.
That is Peter and Ray, right there.
Yeah.
It's Peter and Ray. Vision is Egon, and Thor is
Avengers or Ghostbusters reboot. It's been hidden from us this entire time.
Thor is a little bit like Winston. He's just kind of the guy that's
there.
Are you saying that Thor is the average guy that we all relate to?
Out of the Avengers, I would have to say yes. None of us are military superheroes.
I relate to Coulson.
None of us are super genius billionaires.
Genius billionaire playboy philanthropist.
You're right. None of us turn
forget
into
the
giant
Playboy
green
philanthropist.
monsters because we have anger issues,
Who's also a genius.
which is also a genius
I'd
that
have to
lives
say
as a
Rick
loner.
Moranis was probably the Hulk of the group.
Oh, I love
He was,
into the big crazy
because
dog,
he turned
right?
into a giant crazy monster. But even
I wanted to
then-
punch him. He was annoying.
I actually relate more with Rick than any other guy in this movie.
Okay,
honestly.
the reason, but there's a reason for that because there are aspects of that character that you have related to.
There's aspects of every one of these characters. They're all very relatable.
Yeah, they are.
they are.
They are
Most
definitely
definitely.
relatable characters. But that's the thing. Why you fell asleep because you didn't find a connection with any of those characters,
I really didn't.
and it's because of that age. It has to be, at least in my mind, that age gap. We grew up with it. We saw those. We're like, hey, I can relate to that. Dude, I want to go down a fireman's pole.
I wanna go
They
down
don't
a fireman's
exist
pole.
anymore. I've gone into several fire department houses, and
And they're
there's
like,
no
well,
pole.
rather than hanging out upstairs, we hang out next to the fire engines.
Yeah,
I was like, well,
where's the fireman pole?
Well, you got to
that's
realize
stupid.
there are also 3 college buddies
yeah.
that have pretty much been hanging out this
You're right.
entire time,
You're right.
and then they find a 4th buddy that also joins in.
Yeah.
So, do you think if I watched the 2016 version, I'd relate to it
You
better?
probably would.
Yeah,
You probably would. Well,
absolutely.
one,
It is more updated.
all the
like
it's
jokes.
updated. The jokes are updated. They're all female, which there will
I
be.
don't care about that.
I know, but there are aspects of their characters and personalities that you would more likely gravitate and relate to because you are female.
Because exactly.
last time I checked, I'm female.
Yep. Not saying that the actresses or the movie is bad as a whole. There was something missing, at least for us, because we'd already attached ourselves to those original movies.
Well, not to mention the storyline, the arcs. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
The one-liners are incredibly amazing.
Yeah.
They're so quotable, and in my opinion, most of the humor still holds up today. Like we don't have cell
we're
phones.
talking
in the movie.
original.
Yeah, we're going back to the original.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the main joke that kind of flies over people's heads is. It's Miller time. We've got the tools, we got the talent, because that's an old ad campaign.
Yeah,
that's
the
long
Miller
since gone.
time was, it's Miller time, which means let's go to the bar, crack open a beer, and let's go hang out and relax.
And
what
I've
other
even heard to
references?
this day that joke played out at an aspect where it's usually an old person says it and the young person sits there and he goes, oh, it's not, that's past your time.
So, I mean-
and that's the joke at today is that young kids won't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't get it.
But were there other jokes that just kind of like that were like?
Well, it's-
I
Okay.
felt like most of
Outdated?
it went over my head with the jokes.
Yeah.
Like the Twinkie thing.
See, but then I feel like there's there's a whole level of humor in that movie that some people watch it and they're just like, oh, okay, what's he doing? He plays the piano and the ghosts don't like that? And they don't get that. That's hilarious.
He's
he
flirting,
comes in, he just starts playing around the piano, and he's like, oh, yeah, ghosts hate this. He's BSing it. He doesn't know what
Yeah.
the crap's going on. He doesn't.
Okay,
he
this line or the hotel scene was really funny.
Yeah. But I will,
Because I've always wanted.
but I will
to do
agree with
destruction.
you
oh
Yeah.
that Dan Aykroyd and Sigourney Weaver were really odd.
Not Dan
Bill
Aykroyd,
Murray.
Bill
Or not,
Murray.
excuse me, Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
And Sigourney Weaver were just an odd.
There was no
they
chemistry
shouldn't have
there.
ended up together, in my opinion.
I liked
they
the
didn't.
chemistry.
They-
Because I remember that in the
No.
sequel.
I liked the
But
chemistry.
they had kind of dated in
They
between.
did.
They did mention
Well, it was that hero mentality,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, and I liked the
Nightingale
chemistry
bit.
is the fact that Bill Murray wanted to get into her pants, and she was just very standoffish and
Standoffish.
no,
She was a
no,
strong,
please,
confident woman
Why
in her
don't you
own
stay
apartment.
back?
She's
Yeah.
How
Ripley.
about no? I'm not interested. And I really felt like it wasn't so much chemistry like you get from like Melissa and Joey. If you guys have seen that show,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They've got always great chemistry. Or
Oh, yeah.
or like
Never
Tom
seen it.
Hanks and
right.
Meg Ryan.
Okay, that one I do
They
know.
had an opposite. It was like
You're right, they
he
did
was
have
going
that.
towards her and she was going away.
But
No,
it was
she was
just
not interested.
Going to see a movie when they're trying to introduce a love story in there, it's really weird when you have people that don't even look like they look good.
They really had 3 failed love stories in this movie.
They did.
3 failed. They tried to get Egon with Janine, which of course they always said was a failed, even though fans still love it. It lived on into the cartoon series.
Oh yeah.
See, I believe them more.
Yeah.
And then of course there's Ray and the Ghost, which was originally a plot point.
Yeah.
What
Peter and the
Ghost?
During the dream sequence.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of
That's right.
awkward.
Which they just
That was
kinda-
originally
The
a
thing
scene
is
where
always cut out of the TV version.
Yeah.
Which I've never
And then
seen
you don't
the
really
real movie until I was
and they don't
probably
do
close to
anything
20.
with it, really.
Well, no, but in the original scene, like, Ray actually has this monologue where he actually says, or this inner dialogue where he says, maybe ghosts aren't bad. Maybe we can be friends. As Winston's going around the fort looking for the ghost, like the ghost and Ray have this little romantic tryst.
Maybe I fell asleep for more because I don't remember that.
That's probably good because it's not the best.
Yeah.
And they replaced with the dream sequence, but it was one of the failed relationships.
Yeah.
But they tried to put it in there. It didn't work. But again...
I just thought it was a good joke. Got a ghost job.
Wow. All right.
That's what they do for work, is ghosts, right?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, please let us not end on this note.
No, we're gonna move on. Slimer was something good that came out of that.
And he was supposed to be the ghost of
I really
Lucian.
liked him better in the cartoon, though.
Oh yeah.
See, and I actually think I vaguely remember the cartoon.
So, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, that was a great way to kind of wrap it up.
The cartoon did such a great
If
job.
someone
taking this
ever asks you
material.
if you're a god,
You say yes!
I mean, that was fantastic. That was a great line, and you're just like, yep.
And it didn't distract from the moment where you're oh wow.
I don't get what happened with Gozer. So wait,
They're
did Gozer
crossing
turn
the streams.
into the marshmallow?
Holy
Man?
crap.
So as soon as
I
Gozer
was so
crossed the
confused.
threshold into our world, we had to choose a new form for the Destructor. So it's like almost a thought form, and the form that Ray thought that would bind him to like this harmless state was a happy thought that he had when he was a kid, which was the Marshmallow Man. He didn't imagine a 100-foot tall Marshmallow Man. He probably envisioned, like a little stuffed
little guy
animal.
made of marshmallows.
I would say envision it this. So at the top of the tower was the threshold of the dimension. And for Gozer to cross, Gozer had to take a form.
Okay.
And because they were the champions of this realm, that's how Gozer envisioned them, they had to pick the new form.
See, that's
At least
where
they didn't pick a slore.
Yeah, many
I
shoves
don't
and
know what
zoos.
that means.
A dragon or anything.
Rick Moranis, it's a throwaway line that Rick Moranis has when he's talking about, that he actually introduces that
when
notion
he's the
that,
keymaster.
Yeah, exactly. You guys have to choose the form. Many shubs and zools roasted in the depths of a slore, which is basically a giant T-Rex looking lizard slug thing with huge teeth that spits out black slime. Yeah, it's a nasty thing.
Many people died that day.
Yeah. He just talks about the slore.
Yeah. So
it's like, all right.
And so Gozer takes the form of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, comes in, starts destroying, and they are able to defeat it. Because, well, let's face it, proton accelerators do make nice s'mores.
Which, from a storytelling standpoint, they needed to establish there's one thing we cannot do, and by the end of the movie, they say this is the only thing we can do. And it was a nice story arc to be able to close the gate. So basically, it was a nuclear blast that closed the gate.
Yeah.
So, I just got to run with something. I've never thought about it before, but they're proton accelerators.
Yes.
Exactly. Now, if you were to speed up the electrons in a series of atoms, you're basically electrocuting something.
Yeah.
That is electricity, is
Yes.
electrons moving. So if you're moving protons, that's almost the exact opposite of electricity.
You melted my brain.
It's still moving matter at a rapid pace.
It is,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's moving the protons in an atom rather than the electrons, which are the opposite charge of electricity.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I failed physics.
So basically,
That
across
would-
the streams, it's almost like basically a nuclear blast,
Yes.
right?
Well, I don't know if it'd be a nuclear
Well,
blast, because
it's-
if you cross electrical
okay.
streams, it doesn't do that.
You're right.
But again,
but that's electrons. So
those
when
are
your
electrons, not
protons are flying, and when it's when the protons collide. So that's
proton
why you have those
collider.
proton accelerators.
This is
and they're
getting too sciencey.
Slamming protons together and having those explosions.
And that's the
which
thing
is,
is like,
in their opinion, will open a rift in through the dimension
or
and
close
stuff
a
like
rift
that,
in
or
this
close,
case.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Dan Aykroyd actually, he honestly believes in this. This is actually based on science, like about how protons, in
realized
theory,
this.
that there are ghosts, and that it has to be this intangible matter that's somewhere between physical and ethereal,
Whoa.
and that certain like that these protons should be able to interact with it. And so he's actually based a lot of these story ideas on papers that
Science
he's
at the
read.
time,
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, if you think about it, electrons.
And I find it
electricity
hilarious
goes
that the
through our
EPA
bodies.
was the
It
bad
can go
guy.
through a lot of
Yeah.
hard matter. Why couldn't protons do the exact same thing? They're part of matter, so they could easily transfer through.
Yeah.
But even then, he was a bad guy because Peter Venkman was a total jerk to him. Oh, you want to see it? Say the magic word. You know, what the heck is that? No, you bring him down. Yes, this is our operation, and it's completely safe. Like,
He made the villain.
yeah.
You know, that guy plays the villain in so many movies.
But doesn't
Apparently, I
doesn't
was
the
reading
good guy
Ghostbusters
often
ruined
make the
his
villain?
life because a lot of bar fights were
Apparently
started
they didn't.
because
You're
of
right.
his
You're
character.
Right. His character had a lot of problems, and he disappeared for a while. And then we saw him like in Biodome and stuff like that. I don't think he ever recovered. That's happened to a lot of actors, to be honest, because they've done their characters so well that's enraged people. I mean,
William Atherton, who you're talking about?
Hayden Christensen.
I feel
Oh,
bad
yeah.
for some of these actors who, once they do a certain role, they regret doing that role because
They're
William
that role
Atherton
forever.
actually, he would go on interviews and he would say, yeah, I hated that because I'd be walking down the street and kids would roll down their school bus windows and the entire bus would yell out, "Hey, Nicholas!" Like, it was
Oh my
just
gosh.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean,
what he was known as.
the gal that
ridiculous.
played Nellie Olson from Little House on the Prairie. She has.
I've never seen Little House on the Prairie.
That's okay. We can skip that one.
Most definitely.
She had to write a book because her entire life people hated her because she did her character so well. She finally got to a point where she's like, I did such an amazing job that people still hate that character. So she has accepted that, but she had drinks thrown on her. She had Slurpees thrown on her. She's had people throw food and stuff like that. And that devastated her in her younger life, rightfully so. But that just goes to show how great they did doing the acting in that.
Well,
casting.
it's also disturbing about people, us as a society. We
Yeah.
can't be doing this to characters and to actors, guys. I mean, like
no,
the guy who
that's
in
the
The Walking
thing.
Dead who
Yeah.
plays the intelligent. No, not Negan. The intelligent guy. What's his name? He had to leave social media. Like a lot of actors have had to leave social
Yeah,
media because their
people are-
characters.
Oh, I
The guy who
hate-
plays Rick, is that who you're talking
No,
about?
no, it's-
Ian, I think.
It's a smart guy.
He had the dark hair,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
tall. He was at the last Salt Lake Comic Con.
Yeah, great guy. He was a comedian.
Well, yeah,
Like-
a lot of people.
There are times when I want to
The fourth
leave.
dimension and that the we
That's the
exist in a
problem.
fourth.
A lot of people just can't separate the character from the person.
And that makes me want to leave, like, all my fandoms.
Which is why Hayden Christensen has kind of disappeared because people couldn't separate him from Anakin.
Yeah, the role.
Even though he was in
Yeah.
Jumper, he did a decent job in
You're
Jumper.
right,
I
and
enjoyed
and
Jumper.
I
Glass
liked
House,
Jumper.
but people still couldn't let go because they hated that portrayal of
See, and
Anakin so much.
I just
But
decided
that's
to not watch the first three.
Well,
Star
it
Wars.
can't be
I
good
figured
for
I'd get
also
rid of
people
it.
who loved it. Like,
Yeah.
and I'll admit, I've met Ernie Hudson.
Yeah.
I met
And
him.
the first thing that I did was not quote Ghostbusters. Like, I told him, I enjoyed your character. Like, I feel that you had a positive influence on me as a kid. Thank you.
Well, so-
And I've loved your career ever since.
And this was where the first couple of scenes you see from Galaxy Quest comes into play.
I love
Where
Galaxy Quest!
Everyone's quoting this show they were on. He just grabs it.
I grabbed Thaw's hammer. Don't
and
say it.
You shall
Don't
be
say it.
revenged!
You know, and that's it.
Yep.
Yes, they've done these parts, and I'm sure they've heard it a million times.
Well, they had to
The
say it a
parts.
million
You're right.
times.
Well,
They
they had
don't
to say
say
it
things once, and they're like,
But-
"We got it. That's a take."
But doing what you just did was perfect. You recognized that what they did was contributed to you, but you're not saying, "Dude, can you say the line again? Can you say the line again?" You know, you were valuing what they contributed and what they did, and you were saying thank you. I think that's perfect.
What's his name? Who in The Princess Bride? Who does the inconceivable line?
Oh,
Like, it's
William Shawn?
such an amazing
Yeah.
actor.
Yeah,
Such an amazing,
conceivable.
it's such an amazing line. But he actually at the last Comic-Con, like, apparently something happened where he couldn't say it, and people kept saying it to him. He needed to take a
Ugh.
break. He couldn't be part of the panel.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this in any kind of derogatory
Wallace
way,
Shawn, sorry,
because I
Wallace
could
Shawn.
only imagine like having that same line thrown at you time.
You're right.
time
And how
again.
many other movies has he done? But again, that's because that character was so memorable to us. Mm-hmm. We can't let go. And it's okay that was memorable, but we have to realize these people have moved on.
There needs
And
to be
they
a
have
better
lives.
recognition.
Yeah.
If we're really going to praise them for what they did, of their job of that role, there needs to be a better recognition than us just going up and pestering and pestering and pestering.
I mean,
I think it's called money.
I mean, well, not. I don't think it's money.
You know,
I
Give them money.
easily
whatever
going up
happened
and
to
saying, "Hey,
Grammys,
I
Emmys,
really
and,
loved your
you know,
character in Princess Bride. That line, inconceivable. I have just always loved it. thank you because that did something.
Yeah, thanks for the,
it's
for the
your happy
passion
moment that
and
brought
the
to
energy
you.
that
Yes.
you put behind your performance.
Yeah. So you're thanking them, but you're not going, dude, say the line. Say the line. I want to hear the line.
They're not a monkey.
See, and I
not a
don't,
dance monkey dance moment.
I don't remember like any of my fan encounters. Really, the only one I remember is Chris Evans, but that's just because I was dressed as Peggy. But we didn't really have much of an
But
opportunity. to
even
do
then,
anything.
you weren't asking him to repeat a line as
No,
Captain
I just
America.
asked for a dance.
Yeah, you know,
Because
when
that's their
I
thing.
talked with Brandon Routh, it wasn't like, "Hey, say something to Superman." It was like, "Dude, I loved you as Superman. You looked spot on." What was it like being Superman, donning that S? I mean, that was a valid question, but it wasn't like, "Dude, say something like Superman,"
See,
or anything like that. It was like,
and
what
Carrie
was that
Fisher?
like? It was making it personal.
Carrie Fisher, I said, "Hello, your worshipfulness," and she cuddled up to me. So that was like highlight of my geek
So
life.
that's the thing is they're people. This is their job. They're just like you and me. You know, they've got feelings. You know, respect them for what they've done. I mean, I couldn't be an actor, honestly.
No.
See, and it goes really with any performer. And honestly, I got to meet a great musician one time who I really respect, and I really enjoy listening to. The whole band of Royal Bliss, actually. But Neil, the lead singer, really awesome guy.
Yeah.
Their music's really helped me out through some hard times. And so there he was at the bar sitting down. He was having a few drinks. I went up to him and I said, "Hey, you know what? Thanks for what you do. Thanks for inspiring and uplifting me through some really hard times. You know, keep it on." I bought him a drink and was done. But, because...
Then did he end up talking to you?
Oh, yeah.
Because at that point you acknowledged him. You weren't like pestering him as a huge fan. You're treating him as a normal person, and they respect that.
And
really, they do.
honestly, I've always felt like if I was ever going to be a performer, if I was ever going to entertain in some, that's the whole point behind it, is lifting people up.
Yeah.
Is helping to sustain people with hope and faith in life, basically.
Or giving them some sort of form of entertainment that they can enjoy.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad, entertainment is what it is. But we're out of time.
That's true.
We are out of time.
But
yes.
this is going to segue into our next show. So, what happens when you get to the end of a series, whether it's a book or a movie? Because we love this stuff.
And now
so
you've
much.
lost that inspiration that you had from that different.
Now that
different
you've
source.
reached the
I can talk
end,
about Sabrina again.
what do you do?
We
That's
need
true.
new
All right.
sources.
Oh, before we leave, though,
Yes.
I would like to hear the final grades for Ghostbusters.
Final grades of Ghostbusters. You're right. We didn't give that.
Yep.
So we'll start with Mckenzie. Is it still 2 snores?
It's 2 snores.
2 snores, no snores. All right, Baron.
Or maybe
Oh.
if we're giving it a leather grade, I would say C.
Let's see. All right.
See, I'm an A. A plus even. I love Ghostbusters. I've never really seen anything wrong with it as far as like story wise or plot or even.
What am I going to
lines.
say when we get to Terminator?
Back.
Bill Murray and
First one
Dan
and the second
Aykroyd.
one.
We talked a little bit about the lack of chemistry between Bill and Sigourney, but Bill and Dan, they're on
They're
spot
funny
every
together.
time.
All the time.
Three of
Yeah.
them.
I absolutely love,
The three
Bill,
of them
Dan,
together
Harold.
had a really good repertoire.
Ernie Hudson did add a lot to it as well. I feel like he's definitely kind of the
Well, he was the outsider, but he did a fantastic job playing
exactly
that outsider.
he did,
Because
and
they had already worked
he
together for a
definitely
while.
deserved more recognition because. What happens if there's not a fourth stream to collide with the other protons? That
Maybe it
we
didn't
may have
work.
all been destroyed by a giant marshmallow man.
Yeah.
You never know.
All right,
funny.
Scott.
Oh, I get to go next?
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be last. Okay, for me, so it's still a solid A. Just because A+.
Not an A++, huh? Solid A.
It doesn't. As a teacher, A+ doesn't exist. So that's always bothered me. Because I could never get an A+, and then I was
Really,
talking to my teachers.
we're going that way.
That's
now?
right. That's right. And then my teachers would explain, A+ doesn't exist. So I feel like it's a false pretense.
But if you get an A and do lots of extra credit, that's not an A+?
Nope, there is no A+ in school.
Wow.
Can't get more than 100%.
The American
probably.
education system has failed us all in that regard.
Darn it.
So I will give it A, the highest grade that I can give it as a teacher. And that's because of, one, the chemistry between the 3 main characters. Ernie Hudson, who was the perfect introduction once Bill Murray believed in ghosts and was just inundated by it by being that, they were tired of it. They needed that fresh face that the audience could associate with, and
Yeah.
I did. So I love the interaction between all the characters. I love the sci-fi aspect. I love the props, the story aspect of it. the religious implications that it actually shows, the ability of man to overcome his obstacles, that is the underlying theme of the story. Like, it's a beautiful film that I feel that still withstands the test of time.
All right.
I seriously got none of that.
Well, mine's B+. It's not quite an A, an A-. It's still a great movie. Still holds up to the test of time. It's just, there are some things that are missing from a story element, and that's just because that's just my thing.
Well, the characters don't grow.
Well,
they are literally
right.
the same characters they are at the end of the movie that they are at the beginning.
You did mention that Peter does have a little bit of growth.
A little bit of
but
growth,
not a lot.
yes.
And that is the basic element of every story.
And
is
he got
the
rewarded.
characters, they grow throughout the story. There is something that causes them to grow. I don't really feel like that was ever in there. Even going into the sequel, it felt like the same things.
Do you think the plot would have been a little bit better if maybe rebels were running away?
No.
I don't get it.
We're talking about Ghostbusters.
I know, and I'm making a reference to how you
Star
gave
Wars.
Star Wars such a good review, and now you're giving Ghostbusters such a low. And I'm thinking
it's still a good review.
Star Wars rehashed. Ghostbusters is original.
No, I mean it's still no, and that's great. It was a great original. It's still a good grade, B+. Just
true.
It's above average.
Those are a lot of things that I do remember, even as a kid. It's like these characters haven't really grown. They're still the same guys, even though they've gone through all this stuff.
Yeah.
In Star Wars, there is that character arc. Even Last Jedi, Luke, even though he's a curmudgeon, still was better off at the end than at the beginning.
That's true. But
if it means anything, Egon does grow. Like between
felt
movies, like he actually becomes more. He taps into more of his humanity,
You're right,
and
but
he actually
you have
does
that-
science to benefit
But
mankind.
again, that doesn't happen on screen. We see that
Exactly.
we just see that that's somehow happened.
no, but we did see the event that led to that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because at the end
But
of
we
that,
don't see any of
You're right. There's a lot of stuff that happened between because.
And at the very end, like the whole climax and resolve, there wasn't a whole lot of resolve after the climatic peak at that point.
Yeah.
No,
They
I
were,
love this
oh
town.
hey, here we are covered in marshmallow, and we're alive.
Right, and
I looked
That's
it
the
up.
end.
Yeah, and that's the other.
Did you guys know it was shaving cream?
Yeah.
I didn't know
that
that.
is the other thing that again, in the story, you have to have that wrap up, and there really wasn't. It's like,
No.
hey, we live!
It's like
Honestly,
Happy
but-
Day.
and then
You
throw
didn't
in
know
the
because
music and
it
closing.
still left you with that huge happy.
Although
they conquered, they fought, they
even
won.
the original Star Wars was like that though. Boom!
You're right.
Walking down the aisle, Chewbacca doesn't get a medal, and
But no, there still was the fanfare and medals awarded.
well, there was Ghostbusters. Everybody was cheering. Everybody was excited.
Everyone
coming
was
to
happy,
Marshmallow.
and-
But there was.
And we find out
Right.
later, and
But
the
there
mayor's
was-
already acquitted them.
But you had a finality of that because now they're being.
Oh,
given
yeah,
awards
they
and
were
stuff. You didn't-
arrested.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the Ghostbusters got arrested. You didn't see them get awards. If you would have seen that, kind of would have been a different
I
finale or
guess
something.
they didn't
But
get carted back off the
Mayor,
jail.
You're right.
buddy,
But at the same time,
ow.
it was fitting the way it ended. It's still B+ is so good though.
It is better than what I would have honestly expected more of a C from you, but so I do appreciate that.
All right,
But I just got to give you a little bit of a hard
that's
time.
fine. All right, so we gotta go. We gotta get out of here. We'll check the next episode, and we'll catch you next time.
Well, that wasn't such a chore now, was it?
You're listening to Dungeon Crawlers Radio. Please subscribe and follow on Facebook or Twitter, precious. No, we're even promoting these fake idiots. Who doesn't like them? Who doesn't like anyone? Our friends will love friends. No, shut up. Please subscribe.